Now, the South African prison system has also reached a critical breaking point. National Commissioner of Correctional Services, Mahote Tubagale, recently confirming that the inmate population has surged to more than 170,000, while the country's 243 facilities have an approved bed capacity of only 107. We're going to unpack all these numbers for you in just a moment. In fact, we're going to get into this conversation right now because it's one that could be extremely worrisome and big question marks around where to from here. Do we need to make it just an infrastructure problem? Let's get into this. Professor Thabiso Matshaba from the School of Criminal Justice at Unisa joining us now. Commissioner Tubagale making that revelation. We're operating at more than 150%. 170,000 inmates against a bed capacity of 170,000. Would you describe this as just an infrastructure issue, or is it perhaps making it look maybe just a little bit too simplistic? Prof, good evening.
Good evening, and thank you very much for the invite, Arabile, and good evening to our viewers at home. Arabile, I think that South Africa is experiencing problem when coming to correctional center overcrowding. But there are some key reasons for overcrowding in South Africa. And overcrowding continues to be a problem in South African Correctional Center because it is not caused by a single failure, but it is a systematic weakness across criminal justice system. It starts from policing, courts, and sentencing of offenders and rehabilitation. Here are some of the key reasons that contributed to the current situation. There are a high number of remand or awaiting trial detainees in our centers. There are longer sentences for serious and violent crime. There is a high recidivism rate in South African correctional centers. There's a strain on criminal justice institutions like policing. There's a high crime rate and socio-economic inequality in South Africa. And there's this issue, incarceration of foreign inmates in South African Correctional Center. So this aspect that I just indicated, there are some of the contributing factors to the problem today.
So how should we rethink this incarceration model then? Is that to say that primarily as many foreigners who are incarcerated in South Africa need to be returned to their home jurisdictions, etc.? Should we be looking at the burden on correctional services and looking how we can reduce that? Should we just be building more prisons, which I suppose creates more jobs in some other ways, but I'm not necessarily sure it does the problem any justice?
Unfortunately, building more prisons, we will be saying we have lost a battle against crime. Prisons tend to be overcrowded because of crime. And that is a social issue that we need to focus at. We must fight against crime and make sure that we have a law-abiding citizen. And in terms of the issue of building more prisons, I don't think that will be a solution. However, in terms of incarceration of foreign inmates, we need to pay a very serious attention to this one. Because as we talk, we have plus or minus 26 to 27,000 foreign national inmates in South African prisons. And 690 of these inmates are serving life sentences. So calculatively, you can just imagine they will get a parole after 20 years, which means that we are going to have a 690 individual in our correctional centers that will be staying in for the next coming 20 years. So my personal opinion is like this. I don't know about the law that is applicable, but it is better to take these people back home so that their countries can take the responsibilities. And this figure shows that foreign nationals represent a substantial subset of South African prisons. They are about 10 to 15% in total in the current population that we are having. So we need to stand up and work against this one and others that I've indicated.
Yeah, interesting one actually as well. There are also some disturbing incidents that then happen when it comes to this. You have the stabbing of officials. You even have mistaken releases in some cases, rare but still possible. Parliamentary committees then continue to point, one, to inadequate supervision. You have staff shortages, poor handling of complaints as a lot of the contributing factors. Do we need to fix that culture of weak oversight and accountability inside correctional facilities?
The only way to win this battle, that oversight, is to work against overcrowding. Because truly speaking, with 170%, which means that there's a probability that it will be one official versus 200 inmates, of which it will be impossible for those officials to supervise or make sure that they provide safety to the inmates in. So the best way, before we can look at the failures from our officials, let us look at the capacity issues. Let us say we are working tirelessly to ensure that we reduce the number of inmates in South African prison. And we've got a strategy, we come with a strategy saying that there will be maybe 5 inmates per 1 officials. So we'll be able to defeat most of the problems that we are facing. In short, overcrowding is one of the contributing factors to what is happening in correctional centers now.
Yeah, you know, a little bit earlier you said that if we were to build more prisons or continue with this overcrowding, it would mean that we've lost the fight against crime. If I maybe play devil's advocate, somebody else would say the reason we have overcrowded jails, the reason we have the need to build maybe a few more prisons is because police work is working. We've got a whole lot of these criminals behind bars. How would we perhaps respond to something like that as a key reason for maybe why there should be more prisons built in the country?
The issue comes back to we as a society. Remember, before prison is a society. And if as a society we don't have laws and the rules so that we can be able to control the situation, we are going to have a problem. So we'll be forced to build prison. For example, currently there's approximately 1 million cases in our court of law. And you can just imagine if it happens that maybe 200,000 of that cases, they found them guilty, which means that we're going to experience a problem whereby we'll be forced to build other prisons. Building other prisons is a financial strain whereby that money was supposed to be converted into social development and community development. So prison overcrowding starts with the community. And there's this issue again, there is a relationship between unemployment and crime. Currently in South Africa, we've got 60%, it is estimated that 60% of young people are unemployed. And this causes a frustration whereby at the end of the day, people resort into crime so that they can be able to solve some of the social problem and the family problem that they're facing. So it's a social issue that we need to fight against.
Yeah, one wonders whether the whole system, whether it be sentencing, parole, rehabilitation, accountability, dealing with all of those aspects is just only the start to really getting to the bottom of the problem. Look, Professor, unfortunately, I have run out of time, but I think, if anything, you've seen from Minister Groenewald admitting that there's systemic failures even in the Western Cape prison system, calling for independent investigations, that means there's so much that really needs to be done with this one. So hopefully we'll be able to discuss this a little bit further. Professor Thabiso Matshaba is from the Department of Corrections Management and the School of Criminal Justice at Unisa.